sheet?
Yeah.
I'm good. Connor.
Okay.
I'm good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Resolve the United States federal government should substantially increase its security cooperation with North Atlantic Treaty Organization in one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, cybersecurity. 1. Night the mirror people attack their power as great, but an end of bloody warfare. The magic arts of White Emperor prevailed. He repulsed the invaders, imprisoned them in their mirrors, and forced on them the task of repeating as though in a kind of dream all the actions of men. He stripped them of their power and their forms and reduced them to mere reflections. The imperial protocols of disciplinary academia weren't born in an ahistorical vacuum, but are the new products of murder simulation that replace the living reality of colonized with caricatures of the new world reimagined by imperial vocabulary submissions to semiotic control inaugurates existential absurdity for the colonized gods. 16 simulation refers to the substituting of the sense with the real, and imperialism has nothing to do with the pretense of the simulation that threatens the difference of the real and imaginary, foreseeing the intercepting reality for ethnology to live and must object to die. The Indian returns to the glass coffin, and savages are indebted to ethnology and frozen protected to death, and we become living specimens and visitors. Visitors take on a simulation can be decentering of the Western representation ever since the arrival of Columbus of the New World. The Indian existed only under the murder simulation, and the colonial invention of the Indian replaces the real and academic reference. The Indian becomes a bankable simulation. The word has no reference to tribal language. The colonization and discovery are defined as symbolic possessions that simulate one another and attempt a total semiotic control over the colonizer, over the colonized. And it is the mirror people themselves who will burst in upon our world, and this time it will not be defeated. Belcourt 17. The interpolative is part of the grammar and set of horrid words, incubate death worlds and letter forms and gloves and change the visual landscape and refusal humanity as evidence of terrible mechanics of language, the opposition, linguistic state of killability, the metaphysics of coloniality. Arcan manipulated signs and replace their names, the Cree syllabics, and our arcan images of present besides itself that enables us to attune for the word possibilities in the ordinariness of life and syllabics of potentiate the world making that does not belong to the myth and scene of the settlement and radical resignification build a future atop the Indian time. Words are spun such that they stop us from the social death of the Indian time. Evinces of otherwise kinetics and modified science and transport ourselves in a different place governed by Indian time. These signs interrupt the visual terrain and new geographic form in the surface of the new world, making practice of the misapprehension of native signs and signifiers reinforces hostile cultural simulations in favor of colonial politics. You should vote after throw the simulation in disarray by a trickster. Praxis Youngberg 6. The social and political problems of the reservations will never be solved so long as the issues are aligned with the essentialists. Discussion and assumptions displays the natives themselves to undermine the native politics and cultural essentialism of aligned political realities. It is imperative that we come to understand the political basis of misapprehension that give due attention to native cultural artifacts and contests. Representational politics and cultural misrepresentation have been instrumentalized for colonial projects that have been project of understanding mythological discourses that have been placed in the documents, cultural studies, and surveillance that constitute a simulation of Indian juxtaposition notions of native transmotion, sovereignty, and native discourses of survivance. Deconstruct and disobviate the colonial assertions that the colonized were compared against the mirror to gauge if they were sufficiently in line with the protocols of persuading the mainstream and excluded if they weren't evaluating the empirical consequences. Papers over cultural genocide and devaluation. Tanala and Blaney 17 of it has been competing institutions and underpinnings on what are possibilities by post-colonial scholars is limited. We are asked them to weigh the consequences of the standards of weighing the perceived. They're given the backdrop of modernity. The empirical science gives no account for the ascendancy of norms and God. It's a colonial imposition, the destroyed ways of life. That answer might be this is all in the past. We can move in the progressive ethical advancement. We can move forward only if the violence was complete and ethical heroism and norms of constructivism. Genocide as precondition and constructivist work traits and images of persuasion and denying the coercion of language and norms emerged by a power-laden process that distinguishes normal identities and the practices of devalued workers. This quotidian violence is an intrinsic hard part. Morrison, 93 of the language he dreams of his death of the status language is no desire maintained in the archonic art system is actively stalls conscious and providing the shelter of despots while when language says my fiat unaccountable and evacuated language leaves no access. Sir, they speak only to those who obey an oppressive language as they are violent, whether it is obscure state language calcified, it must be altered and exposed and the drinks blood under crinolines and their respectability as it cannot permit the mutual exchange of ideas in pseudo-empirical language that blocks creative the people in the cage of inferiority and hopelessness in cybersecurity, biotechnology, intelligence, artificial areas, following the more one in the organization treaty outlined ignored with the cooperation, security, and increasing substantially should government federal states united. The one AC embodies the trickster hermeneutics that uses debate as a game to inject native counter simulations and response to simulation about the absent colonized and arms of reduction of affirmatives that throws the paradigm of the new world IR into crisis. Gods are 16 Visionor, less concerned with the faithful rendering Roger's argument that produces the insights for the meaningful native context that imposed Indian views and subjectivity that is playing with the simulation described with the Indian as she represents the native survivance beyond the victory There is no contending with the simulation, but on the level of simulation itself, the posting signifies the return of vanishing Indian as a specter of empire and a truth suppressed of difference, and the goal is not to achieve authentic native presence, but to deem the rules of representation, trickster hermeneutics drawn on the agency that transcends and connects the world, and the hermeneutics that emphasizes the polysemic nature of the silent language as a game. You don't have to make it mean that the trickster hermeneutics refuses logocentrism and rationality, and views playful renegotiation of tradition intended, the contradiction for overcoming the prison of simulation. The trickster has no ontological gender and is no reproductive, and generative, and destructive, and trickster strategy to create new identities located in reinvention of territory of the nation. Trickster functions as a skeptical categorization and demonstrates an arbitrary categorical cultural system. Trickster the theory turned towards questioning dominant Western thought and produces alternative the alternative versions of academic writing. The trickster motif was a way out of the binary construction of meaning. Yeah.
Resolution at the top. If we win the USFG, should not increase security cooperation with NATO. Do we win the debate?
No, the 1AC is about playing with linguistic dexterity and how we relate to language in the resolution.
Does the AF defend federal government action?
The AF does not fiat federal government.
Okay, if we win security cooperation with NATO, would destroy the alliance's cohesion. Do we win the debate?
Again, the AF does not fiat.
Okay, the second part, which is like the resolution backwards. Why did you read it backwards?
Well, that's a demonstration of the 1AC trickster hermeneutics, which plays and reorients and disorients.
Why is every tag and text of the card not backwards?
Well, to some extent, communication is good, but we can
Okay, to
selectively
some
trick
extent,
certain
communication
practices
is
and
good. Where do
disorder
you draw the
practices
line?
like the resolution that are actually
Yeah,
imposed
why
on
do you
us.
draw the line? Why is the advocacy the only place where you have mirror text but nowhere else?
Well, again, we've disordered the singular imposition of the resolution. Just because we didn't disorder every word in the 1AC does not mean we somehow haven't performed trickster
Okay,
hermeneutics.
why does
Regardless,
voting
it's also an endorsement of trickster hermeneutics as a broader strategy.
Why does voting AF for 2 non-native people do anything to distort the resolution?
Well, the censor does not think that trickster hermeneutics should solely be deployed by native people. In parts of his book, he speaks of things like the Chinese Monkey King and Brer Rabbit, who are all forms of non-native existence, which can contribute to the tricksterism of current paradigms of settlerism. The idea that non-native people should just not engage with the question of trickster hermeneutics results in exclusion and results in echo chambers, which results in worse, more hostile
Sure.
decision-making.
The Ganser evidence describes alternative versions of academic writing. Why is the AF a form of another version of academic writing?
Well, debate is an academic space, an academic site of exchange. The 1AC's produced
The 1AC has not
artifacts.
produced new scholarship. Confused why you have met the threshold for solvency as per 1AC evidence.
What about the 1AC's not produced new scholarship?
The 1AC has not written new articles. You've proposed the resolution backwards. Why is that new scholarship?
I don't understand what you're saying.
I don't understand your answer. Why have you produced new scholarship?
We've read a new 1AC and a new format for new judges, new individuals. That's
Okay,
the
reading
production
new
of a new
1AC is
performance.
sufficient. Sure. Morrison evidence, what quotidian violence has occurred?
Well, we've said the misapprehension of native signs and signifiers and the reduction of
Yeah,
native
which native
individuals to
people
a
have been
bankable
harmed in the
simulation.
context of this round?
This round?
Yeah.
The 1NC, like, the debate hasn't happened yet. We've made a unique system about debate.
Okay, so to clarify, before the 1NC, AF solved zero violence because zero violence has occurred. That's correct.
We said the reduction of native individuals to a bankable simulation, that is bad. We've made a unique claim about debate.
Where do you have any evidence about debate in the 1AC?
We've applied scholars outside
Okay,
of
applied scholarship, not about debate, in debate. Why does voting AF solve any quotidian violence?
You understand your argument would say that every card from an academic ever would have to be in debate. That's a completely unreasonable.
Well, you've made a solvency claim about violence in debate. I just don't understand why you solved it.
Again, we've said we've counter-simulated and engaged in a practice of trickster hermeneutics. That
Okay,
is
why
solved.
does voting AF resolve any quotidian violence that has occurred?
Again, it disorders business as usual. It challenges current practices of settlerism. That is good. If you win the 1AC's research artifact,
Is the only
good,
reason
that's
you've
sufficient.
disordered business because you read an untoppable AF? Is that the only reason?
No, we've outlined the 1AC's harm, intrinsic harm of the reduction of natives to a bankable simulation. We've counter-simulated. That's good.
What does he say? The order is 7 off and a kiss.
Yes.
Got it. I got it.
Give me a second.
You go whenever.
not ready. Interpretation, absent from the desirability of United States federal policy, actions of physical security, cooperation, the North, communication, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and cybersecurity, United States federal government, means the OECD 7. The U.S. is the federal republic, federal government, composed of agreements, legislation, executive, judicial, security, government, crisis, the UD 119. Congress defines security office, the UD specifically, chiefly for product development activities, tax resolution, conservation, and hypothetical government action, section 3. Each obligated to account into the Act of 19th, the Reversion of Act of Policy Act, action to the governmental means, but negative versus fairness, owing the resolution of predictable states, point guides, research, changing inputs, factors, unpredictable, explains limits, let them radically recontextualize the offer, monopolize moral high ground. Fairness is good, it is a game that requires a precursor to maximize its potential, it comes first. Because deciding any other argument this way cannot be disentangled from inability to prepare for a voting out can't resolve thereof, and voting out can resolve R. Second is clash. If we define controversy over limited topics of survivor, limiting substance its in-depth class, the impact is argument and refinement. The rest is a state point in creative innovation within confines yields nuance testing because we predict our opponent's arguments. This process is challenging because it argues regardless of the politics we advocate for. Reasons of the argument, the negative solves their offense. Roman 17. Core institution democracy have been interrupted. Those are transparent and those zero sum competition between tribal leaders, tribal mythology, information value, and conformity, context, evidence of whether or not it's value, evidence of so the bubbles, the politics of my defined implicit norms, this way politics, context are bound by freedom, still able to violence or liberal institution norms, ways to provide structural limits, powerful change, conservatives resist, seems that participants give it all, takes the game, by the other side, whenever less media, tribal mythology, traditional talking tribals, and other arguments, and the over Trump's core supporters have protected the whole framework, the conservative media has no theories of compromise, problems, and electronics of consultate, mobilize outrage, dissolve, and normalize the argument to do with the consequences of authoritarianism, defend products of norms, and preconditions for existence, act off. The app lapses into folk politics and sees the terrain to alter structural conditions of power subsumed by neoliberal agents. Go direct 22. Folk political sentiment characterized the locals ethical, the progress is over, limited and favored by counter-hegemonic content, cost capitals, a large scale politics driven by pessimism at large scale, changing possible fear by great narratives, ignoring things by neoliberal common sense, posturing resistance from discomfort with modernity to the inevitably rendition of alternative world, different units with right, the unifying narrative was hard to identify, so by design protest, reject progress, war, defeated by neoliberalism, absence of concrete demands, there was a popular passivity, extinction, but 23. Capitalism self-sustainable, living evidence that capitalism leading us to reach parallel share boundaries to a livable planet, the rise in sea levels, forest loss, water use, acidification, increasing teach IPC brings, worsening issues including climate action, ocean, and other risks like risk of collapse, relative consumption or development, necessity, extraction to generate profits. The alternative is pragmatic depends on the state towards anti-capitalism, Party 15. The problems of refusing to see particle radical things race, refuse revolutions, and all the states smash versus left, and I'm going to answer how we build infrastructure, we the organization, state of license, our report, the CDC, how to fund the epidemics, you can't do it yourself, we can't prepare warming, include centralization, confrontation, Montreal, limit deflation, or is a needed organization, if the left doesn't make it, the Senate comes left, and pragmatic, very debates of the space of revolution, outcomes, and compromise, roll back, austerity, for new organizing can take place, there has been no organization, political change, this is a very clear project, we'll have like a movement where there's no collective project that you just help people cope, there will be no politics, I stop. NATO is a consensus organization. NATO is trying to also made by consensus themselves on neighbors to bring any issue concept cohesion is high but not guaranteed trust. Like 31, Ukraine is from the president of translating as human as number one should not be taken for granted. The interesting character of great to have been will make the translated leadership. Turkey says no, truths, no consensus got 20. Dispute between Turkey now is no Turkey should ability to make deal decision tensions, reflect out the of Turkey's posture, knowledge, realize and consent every process would be judged to be thrown to the block, taking hold of the cooperation, development of unwillingness to compromise, harmful repression in the future, we were NATO becoming increasingly incooperative doubts will further incentivized countries to act on NATO framework for the digital threat and cohesion of the alliance. Extinction, Cold War 21, United NATO to go to credible territory, change representative of Russia received data from Thomas Cluster State Repair Paradise Alliance supposed to stand first adversary, like Russia red light gaps confusion, going out to return to lack capacity to respond to terrorist attacks, forcing military posturing, coast guards undermining, living boxing, advancing authoritarianism, challenges posed by. Next up. The United States federal government ought to submit the United States federal government substantially increasing executive cooperation with the North Computerization, one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, cybersecurity, contracting team, super forecasters. The United States federal government to commission so much technology of the above. Submission to ensure the best policy implementation strategy. The United States federal judiciary to establish the above. So much technology should be the standard for governmental decision making. Conflicts implement strategic forecasting structure analogy. Solving into polls 13. Better strategic decision making given some kind of support forecast important large decision making process forecast argument team making correction for position control interest exam forecasting strategy more closely strategy for us in aiding governmental decision making strategies being defined for policy implementation to therefore be used as a process forecast usage of particularly effective candidates for further method analysis judgment of use of structure strategy used for making effectiveness predictions that are inexpensive to implement for writing performance and analysis all possible solutions while maintaining comfortable saving with time and money otherwise extinction as overall 22. Plan for generating accurate answer question like situational kind of generation forecasting. We are assembling to great power of biology, equal collaboration, automated system forecasting, help calculate the probability judgment that are potential weaknesses longer necessary from prediction, reaction, carbon, time, relaxation, assist, policy, making, later, conditions, and counting distractions. Next up. The United States should ban artificial intelligence, AI is fundamentally unethical. Hope 21. Thou shalt not make a machine like this with human mind. That if you want to spend more time in every circle, definition, moral action, the become in the plan. You don't until the creation made of bits. We are the trying to steal, break the right rating, and candy, or later should terrify myself. That's what the AI will be like. There are abilities to make this creature that well. That's why that's the second line. Actual research programs for the AI is moral. You don't leak any more bots. You get it right. Targeting is more just because it existed. It's not not involved being something sort of abomination. That's a legitimate category. Just not no longer. So we shouldn't make them to preserve dignity of humans. Those who want to stop AI research should have the same sex databases. The human databases. That's we are still controlling while we are banning this research. Next up. The United States federal government should commission an environmental impact statement to gather data and evaluate policy options that substantially increase security operations and North utilization one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, cybersecurity, and adopt the best alternative identified only if it can make consistent with the above. Recommendations: the United States federal government should establish the above environmental impact statement with substantive, not merely procedural. That should be the standard for the National Environmental Policy Act's impact statement requirement. The NECAL plan restores teeth in NEPA, advancing of Saudi 11. Me plus procedure holder for HG dot party HG the situation requiring money mitigation, placing risk regulation, people protection, sustainability, linear need to different limits, mechanisms, catalyst effects, management, resource reforms, management possible, allows for managers to build resilience, substantial deep assault, distinction, call 98. Survival is usually dependent on environment situation and the way the government's response to the future national policy, the environment economic achieve national humanity, creates financial unifying national effort, delivering goals, principles, national policy, constitution for the environment, future, GK for the US.
Read it.
Next up. Cybersecurity, biotechnology, and intelligence artificial areas following of the More or One and Organization Treaty Atlantic North of with cooperation its increase substantially should take of department takes United that consolidated country to US solves over 21. Security system broken UD inhibited oversight coordination in the country military security system element now actually the content include non-democratic human rights abuses and effective reacts US should depend on allies that put the system on to the new advocate and embrace reform to provide diplomacy both civil state power vaccine happening in balance church research state power better adjust your political challenge and centralized responsibility and energy control and ground interagency cooperation loyalties and wasteful status quo blocks and military settlements the system of student foundation state farm better support useful possible to economics counter authoritarians able to give diplomatic college method and enhance democratic privileges of every risk. Verse 20 actually crossed by the part of this case. One, vote negative presumption, A, an effective no benefit to affirming the app and debates Tony monitors auctions the TOC polarizations about well-changed views as a foster alien debaters who boost them, which fosters resistance against them, negative subjectivity, C, inherited burden, the option to be part of the scope, focus, order, and the scholarship, produces no reason the app matters to the violence, and that's why possible being psychological violence, divorce, and instigate people's ongoing trauma strategies. 2, no solvency about for 2 non-native debaters does not, since the single that ever described. 3, does not solve voicing inserting one text that's mirrored in no way meets the bar, especially if they're in the resolution the right way at the top. 4, extinction outweighs for part 17. Work out value time related probabilities to right extra little aggregate catastrophe with confusions. I think promise support greater engineering actual features into the cost biases lead people to underestimate S this availability who's assisting assumes something is important only for cost to be emphasized but it's little effective. Response number stabilized numbers get too large. 5, even if falsifiability be bad, that's alternative back 15. Abandon falsifiability with James and privilege trust. The time when the trust is critical policy making falsifiability should be your time falsifiability before there should be expanded falsifiability. It's not a perfect criteria in the post, much less for initiative than most being started in the post. Empirical fact 6, they're wrong about symbolic exchange. Unit 12. Materialism is not a nice symbolic conjunction. It does not follow because we relate different social symbolic from conjunction that body is nothing that really real apart from human biology, not an abstract construction by majority or reality, politically ethical self, underwriting on a category mistake is true. Human life requirements are nothing but function of the system. There's no guarantee to criticize massive failures for life to require scientific anything. If you use social construction, then it's so is 2 is mass starvation absurdity of the system. And 7 rejects psychic drives, 8 projects from support. Structural matrix search between generalization specific instances, key restricted against action production explanation with more propagandistic than explanatory company based from already formulated theory applies to tell it's already true instead of actual science. There are shadows inspectors. B, it's individualized. Gordon 1, second analysis is political theory, second political or second analysis imaginations or individual problems. There's no testing of some such national seeking replace the other one as last arguments be proved. Derived arguments with individual patients outside no verification. 18, nothing can be true. 8, debate is politicizing the attempt to engage overcomes alienation. 14. Politics or its outer design individual people come to which it provides an opportunity for actualizing yourself without trusting in speech. Not good speech. I don't know what to fix that. Their interpretation is self-defeating contradictory carriage. 20 elimination of paradigm control with indigenous aging homogenization establishing systems of narrative colonization towards an order of indigenous persistent critic discussion structural continuity of colonialism for close indigenous aging reduction structural models considering logics of colonialism also comes to the closure of all structuralism denies average and other entry points and reduce pathological elimination participating in the colonial party model denied cover differences between settler colonies New Zealand South elimination rejected wolf characterization ongoing structuralist 10 second drive to 15. Race is not integral part of human psyche, social contract or common races by reference to some a-party structure due to failure. Market failure.
You good? Okay, the CAPK, can the alternative include counter simulations that can, throw systems of capital and destroy?
Not in the form the one I see is described. We think the one I see is presentation in debate is the link argument. The alternative would obviously reject that in favor of more material action outside.
And what about the one I see's representations was the link argument?
Well, the one I see has literally described itself as playing with language. The link argument we will make is that playing with language is the definition of capital control. The Guterres evidence is in the context of...
If it's about our representations in debate, does the alternative spill up to broader capitalist organizing?
Well, the idea that the alternative has to spill up is the link argument. We have impact on this idea that horizontal imaginings inside debate actually do anything. Instead, we've argued that that is bad and trades off with actual resistance.
Okay. Folk politics, what is that?
What?
Folk politics?
Oh, folk politics. I think the evidence describes it as localism, i.e., using the local scale ideas outside of state-based movements.
The Tetlock counterplan, super forecasting, what is that?
Alex read a book about this and actually explained it in her Harvard interview. So she can
yeah, okay. So super forecasters. So these people trained by Tetlock empirically. There was a tournament between CIA agents and super forecasters proved that around a large percent, I think 50 to 60%, super forecasters predicted the future far better than CIA agents.
Okay.
We read evidence indicates that we consulted all of these super forecasters over the app.
The counterplan says that super forecasters should determine the best policy implementation. Why should they be limited to making forecasts solely about policy making?
Well, 2 things. One, policy implementation is not necessarily governmental, i.e. the best policy as a result of the affirmative, whatever that turns into.
Okay. Case, the second subpoint, is your assertion that the ballot cannot spill up?
Are you talking about the perception stuff?
Or I guess why is topicality a question of models, or why does the ballot solve?
Wait, so questions about T now, not presumption?
No, well, I'm just asking, like, is your assertion that the ballot won't spill up to, you know,
Well, I have a question about topicality. Why is it a question of it models a debate? How do you solve clash?
Alex, how do you solve clash?
Obviously, ballot does not fiat in a model debate. Nobody can result in their model by just voting negative or voting act. We think the ballot is an endorsement. What is a better model debate?
Why should we imagine a model that will never exist?
What do you mean?
Why is it valuable to imagine a model that will never exist?
Well, I don't think we have to win. It's intrinsically valuable. We will make arguments why our model debate is superior. You will make an argument.
Will you
why
make
your
any
model debate is
arguments as
superior,
to why
but
voting
not
for
superior
topicality
model.
results in your model?
What?
Will you make arguments for why voting for topicality results in
We
your
will
model?
make arguments that the ballot is an endorsement of the better model
So
of topicality.
again, I'm asking, does voting negative make it more likely that your model is enacted?
We've made an argument that the
Yeah,
ballot
but yes or
endorses
no?
a superior model of debate.
No. So does voting negative does not make the enactment of your model more likely at all? In
It
any
doesn't
capacity?
make the enactment of the AFS model more likely either. I'm confused with
But
the
it doesn't.
endpoint of this
No,
question.
well, I'm asking about your thing.
You will make the same
This
thing,
is
though.
contextualized to AF offense. This is a reaction to what the AF has said, which is actually nothing as per the one I see. Whatever. Yeah. Wait, are you taking prep or not taking
Where's
prep?
that?
You know, taking prep?
No, it's
You
just.
see 7 cards? Take a second.
oh, he's,
Wait, so yes, taking prep?
yeah.
They should be. 927 right? Okay, the order will be the case, topicality, the capk, the consensus DA, and then the TED counterplan, the ban AI counterplan, the climate counterplan, DOS counterplan. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
LASA? Good? They cannot win this debate without disproving our thesis that the genocidal process of settlement is not simply material, but is informed by semiotic superstructure Columbus' discovery of a new world and supposedly Indian inhabitants murdered, inaugurated a murder simulation that substituted in this reality for the science of the making and debates that subsume the antagonism for vocabulary colonized under the assimilatory language of national defense for everyone remains anticipatory visions of human security, forcing radical outsiders to assimilate to mainstream protocols of native security cooperation debates, which is an obliteration of singularity and how this is the intrinsic hunger in these populations face the choice of force, the choice of abiding by the colonized norms or ensuring cultural genocide. The one sees mobilized the church of hermeneutics to connect with the simulation of the level of the simulation itself. The plan takes an example of counter simulation of the resolution that it dwells in the ruins of representations that of being faithful to technical linguistics or security cooperation of creating an authentic Indian process in the first place. Now their presumptive arguments. One, the one is generates uniqueness. The one key performs the misapprehension of native signifiers and signs within this domain, which means voting out, which generates harm for the one, which means voting out correct against regardless of bounds, change community norms and argumentation, especially in a TOC elimination based voting out encourages research and simulation around the affirmative, which is intrinsic good polarization is blackmail logic is blackmail logic. Even if white racists would debate with it, would become more racist as a result of the affirmative that disproves our uniqueness argument about the dissuasive nature of native potential. Now, regardless, this would justify not passing the 13th Amendment because the South would backlash. They say negative generates adherence. We are a departure from the status quo because the status quo is simulation. We are counter simulation. All the arguments how settlers semiotics are wrong. None of their arguments assume how semiotics sustain settler clones. And there are two examples. One, no doubt, was originally decolonizing courts that told oil companies to get out that was recoded as environmental growth to make liberal fit liberal frames of state reform. Two is Turtle Island settler America Vespucci renamed Turtle Island after his own first name, which substituted indigenous signs of the Turtle Island generic set called cards and psychoanalysis card will not have limits as for dismoving of semiotic thesis that evidence is proving that Columbus' arrival did not redefine indigenous linguistics. No fatalism often because refusing settler semiotics is empowering in the first place. Extinction outweighs obviously so. Even if we are not making a psychoanalysis claim, so older arguments about symbolic drive are about mainly meaning McClellan, but the contingent deployment of ancient native semiotics within debate. We are not universalizing. We are not universalizing. We made a uniqueness claim about how language operates, which is categorically different from their arguments about the psyche. Debate is not politicizing to the extent that native subjectivity and communication is rendered dissuasive, which means it cannot spill up to broader fears. Now go to Top County. Counter-interpretation, the one decision from the representational rise of ruins of the resolution interpretation inaugurates a prison house of simulation, Stephen logos such definitions and structurally adjusting unintelligible or model treats languages play a sign of identification mania through definitions and models less predictable improved by hundreds of distinct definitions of topical words framed to be as a plot logic takes space to create new revolutionary meanings instead of stereo game confined with conventional procedure positing fairness and clash as intrinsic goods as the settler movement instance that sublimes the antagonism of a native church to produce a controlled environment that's for the majority. One is paradigm compatibility, a model that procedure practice transgressive content indoctrinated students that heed the inevitability of rules that's given and structurally adjust their arguments, or else there is no game. This trains native students to desire their own repression as their touch arguments to be refined. And they are dealt with through second line testing instead of refining in the diswill to power that upends conventions to feral access to merciless simulation, viewing competitive as a procedurally equal meritocracy prior to native space intrusion of the colonial illusion that paints the native debate church as backwards, lacking rigor, and cutting and running from obligations to make community underestimate the procedural and colonial nature of bracketing out online context. Expertism is pacification demands for definitions of formal paradigm compatibility that substitutes antagonism with professional dissent and instils respectability. Congregate Jewish groups susceptible to the hallmark of imperialism. Only what is written is understood for subordinate groups. Texts are inaccessible. Subordinate people experience bureaucracy of literacy in terms of control, most suppressed, trouble with writing, machine law, transcription, engaging in the world by raising the odd letter to history of the text, and the habitual people argue with white interlocutors from everyday performance exceeds the verbal, not elite people recognizing capacity of text and critique implications of the historical process of systematic exclusion. Regardless of what anything needs to be read, the resolution was counter-simulated, which means the textual interpretation of the plan is sorted by the one. See, the history of topic cannot be separated from its modern context. There's a reason teams here and now of the TSC are arguing for radical visions of debate without those that forward the way it would be without those who forward the way it would be possible. Given the topic county was designed for forward takes, the only thing that matters is they would say that teams that are gone TV and that forced to patch that should be procedurally excluded here and now, and that teams do not have united the crowns. Now here's their 1C card. Take a look. Roberts 17. We've highlighted all the relevant parts that we're going to critique that demonstrate that they've performed misapprehension of native subjectivity. That is racist misapprehension of native tribal existence. Reject the team Mungai 19 tribals become an inescapable concept in American politics, partly because forces divided America's public spheres more, becoming more and pro-life. There's a signification problem that using the word tribal. The tribal is based on a racist stereotype about how groups of stereotypes have historically interacted. Morgan outlined the scheme for human evolution of human society through savagery to civilization. This frame is basic framework in which the notion of the tribe developed. Scholars realized that the word tribe was a product of colonial logic reserved only for people that not considered fully civil. Tribes surpassed kingdoms in Europe in terms of bureaucratic sophistication. Tribal rules governing often involved culture, same can be critical of reconciliation and cooperation. Each side hardly views each other as inhuman, but the colonial enterprise that froze fluid tribal borders for the purpose of administration control went so far as to argue that tribalism would not have excess but the West intervention. West created the new phenomenon that views the elemental primordial throwback to the self-fulfilling dynamic to Western ideas about tribal identity, conflict, division, because real, the colonial powers knew they were real, running tribalism, science, and many of member tribals didn't have choice, but as much to do with Western stereotypes that how to do how tribal people have behaved for benefit to choosing words beside tribal, make clear that this turmoil is entirely homegrown, not alien to U.S. history, metaphorically foreign, or permanent. Their class difference offense cannot outweigh the linguistic performance because it's unfair for native students to be forced to engage with hostile racist microaggressions. Okay. Permanent to both right capitalism and the truth their impact and overcomes the consumption. You have 12 years to create right capitalism, aboriginal values, the ability to practice capitalism, development of competency, spiritual process, and not be part of development within the joint effort between individual and collective rather than competitive development will consider the effects of the environment. Individuals who have wealth will share, populators will not be able to proceed unless consensus has been reached. The force of the modernization are way too great to resist. One could adapt with institutional building within aboriginal society, semi-Christianic colonization, superior survival, between the economy based on semiotic production, commoditized circulates images, language with the basis of accumulation, discovery of a new more market beginning, provoked by the simulation of discovery, new learning, technology made it possible for the division of text and semantic copies, create the door for the simulation of imaginary word evolving experience. Capitalist culture is marked by codes belonging who are you, what fear, value, capitalist frenzy started in cultural conditions, overflowing with semiotic inflation, protest, ethic turn, exaltation of new values, and interest in the moral climate that shortness has criminalized as native, deviant, perpetuates capital, word 676, the metaphysical principle of economy, utilitarian capitalism, and its death throws are not bound dialectical reversals, but to the inability to display which gives capital over unlimited reproduction, subordinate human entry to industry. Marxist care critiques only a good of exchange value, but the exaltation of use of value would make greatness of capital. Marxism and one worship of the banalization towards the good of use social capital in this area of floating currencies is an liberatory value. Despiritualization, trying to focus on material makes their impacts inevitable, guarantees continued colonization, means a thinkers particularly as human existence converted in abstract and new imperialism lying in Marx, the material tradition of spiritualizing the universe, both humanization, satisfaction, mean Russian from the beginning. Material Marxists can be allowed to develop uranium because sufficient anti-revolution Europe is to reinforce Europe's ability to exploit the destruction of other peoples. The environment power relation with Europe's society, ultra indigenous people remain the same. Revolution can only occur through proletariat existence of mass industrial system is a precondition, content precondition, their full quality living is racial control. So that said that many people are too self-interested and folk to be operational by the to be able to operationalize by the broader Marxist part of the techno counter permutation, but there's no trade-off between politics and politics within debate, and the alternative that can exist outside debate. The counterpoint is all none of the case to agree with legal issues on into confront problems with academic debates. This applies to the climate counterplan, the DOS counterplan, and all the ban AI counterplan, the DA. They have no link at all. None of these positions make any sense because the YC because the YC is not fiat anything. They're obviously not competitive. Also, yeah, stimulation breeds incapacity through addiction and makes the attack on the counterplan less likely because we become addicted to the feeling produced by stimulation as opposed to actual politics.
Are you for cross X?
Yeah.
The we meet argument. Oh, I can wait. Are we good? The we meet argument at the bottom of the framework. The last argument, the 2AC, is that you don't defend hypothetical fiat and government action while you meet framework.
You're fair. We'll continue to meet framework.
Okay, they don't meet framework. Let's talk about the counter-interpretation. What does it mean for an affirmative in the representation of the resolution?
Well, it's the representational ruins of the resolution, right? It unimagines the traditional linguistic dexterity demanded by the 1NC's framework interpretation. We've said we should implore the multiplicity of language instead of be able to affirm the representational ruins as such, which is the 1NC's counter-simulation.
You haven't affirmed the resolution. You've affirmed the backwards resolutions.
Well, that's our point. That is the representational ruins of the resolution.
What is the ruin? What defines the ruin of the resolution?
Sorry?
What defines a ruin of the resolution?
Minoritarian perspective on such.
What's a minoritarian perspective? Like, how do you define what that is? How do you try to meet a minoritarian perspective?
We're making a set of claims that AF should be open to epistemological creativity in doing so.
Oh, so anything, like any creativity, any creative thing I think of is now topical AF?
Well, it has to be resolutionally related.
Why is the AF resolutionally related?
Like the affirmative read the resolution backwards as a moment of counter-simulation.
And that's resolutionally related because it's just backwards?
I mean, like, it's related
Let's
to the
talk about
resolution.
that. Why is the
it mimics
resolution
traditional settler legalese, settler language.
Why is the resolution a predictable stasis point?
I mean, we've made claims that predictability should be evaluated in alternative ways for indigenous.
But you've still tied your interpretation to the resolution. I'm asking why.
I mean, to some extent, we think the resolution is forwarded.
Oh, cool. So the resolution is
You just said
predictable.
AF should have the opportunity to express things beyond that.
Okay, so to clarify, your interpretation also includes like policy apps, like increasing intelligence sharing.
No, because those do not affirm the representational rules of the resolution.
Why not? I think that's creative.
Well, it's not a minoritarian perspective that
Why not?
challenges the resolution, so it certainly does not mean.
It just sounds rather creative. Like, why is that not topical? But your examples.
I mean, like, apps that would increase military cooperation, those are not representational rules.
Why?
Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affirmed by the representational rules. Because those are not affir is it your argument that nation to nation interactions like?
Yeah, I'm asking why. You're explaining my argument.
That is not representational.
Why?
That cannot be an interpretation. That's not what our 1AC evidence would describe as something that
Where
challenges
does your
Western
1AC
colonialism and
your
perspectives.
1AC evidence
It's
stop at
incorrect.
resolution?
We've not said the words representational ruins, but we made a set of arguments about how definitions and the imposition of
All of this is
strict
circular,
static
none of it
ruins of
defines the
resolution
model.
are bad.
Let's talk about the diss at the very bottom about how it's unfair for native debaters to face microaggressions. Why does that apply to this debate?
Again, it should be about a model of engagement. 1Cs that you've read from Greenhill until the TOC that call politics that are anarchic, politics that are polarized,
If
tribal,
you think,
those
hey,
are
if
perceived
you
to be
think
unfair
we're
for
a
native
racist,
students.
why not stop the debate right now? Why are we still debating?
I mean, we would be perfectly happy with the judges stopping the debate. And
Okay,
calling
do you
one
wanna
of
stop
the
the
races.
debate right
However, again, ballots should be assigned. We should have epistemological standards
No,
for
no, no,
everyone.
I will stick
Judges
with
are
it right now.
time out. This is important. Judges are educators, and they should correct against pedagogical harm.
Yeah,
So
why
the
was
negatives
that?
should have an opportunity to defend that they did not do something racist. What if the judges conclude at the end of the debate you did a racism? Cool, loss.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
I believe all of us would work for just to take it back.
Wait, can we?
Oh, Neil, did you read Newhouse?
Which position?
On the K.
Yeah, Newhouse.
Two issues. Yeah.
sheet or no new sheet?
Yeah, new sheet.
Yeah.
Let me know.
No cards.
Wait, did you say T or TKs?
T case, like topic.
And she said yes sheet for overview if you want.
Gotcha.
Good, everyone good?
Boom, negative towards the limited interpretation to make that maximizes classroom fairness. Interpretation explodes limits and unpredictable makes it be impossible to impact A or fairness. The insurmountable advantage of being affirmative in the model will always inflate the value of the impacts, which makes non-arbitrarily weighing whether they want the debate impossible. Being untopical to choice of competitive countries. Debate requires a function which stabs motivation to come to tournaments and invest any time and energy into the activity. Fairness is not an impact, it's the impact. There is no incentive to learn and under a game. That proves you can vote on a ballot pick. The app buys into the idea that the ballot is a holistic verdict on who did the better debating. That's why looking for undercovered arguments and expect you to adjudicate fairly. Only we have ballot keyword. The ballot cannot shape personal beliefs or behavior, but it can remedy error and abuse from and unfair affirmative. Second, clash is the only intrinsic value of debate because all the reasons of activities that are valuable can be garnered from other venues. The technique of debating a positive disagreement outweighs the benefit of its content. Predictable controversy maximizes our ability to sort through statements and evidence, accessibility, and the developed beliefs, which is key to actualizing any of the acts intricacies in the real world. UF proves our fairness and competitive incentives is the only reason they did not disclose before the round. Throw any app argument about there being liquid, giving the net ground, or any argument with debate not being a game. If they wanted to have a discussion, they could have set the app, the counter check, deletes immutability, A, predictability, even if they're limited, they're not predictable. Frame into the conceded definitions, 2AC drop definitions of USFG, CQ competition, etc. It's audible loss or evidence outlines a predictable version of the topic which all debaters can adequately prepare for. Only a predictable interpretation guides thorough and targeted research on factors. The best clash between two well-prepared opponents. Second, refutation, the acting toward truth is like an actually good or violence of actions are uncontestable and uncontroversial, undermining the whole point of the resolution, which turns their impact turning to moral high ground forces and negative divine and violent positions like Hedgekin as a generic. Third, arbitrariness. Policy apps are not T, but somehow the affirmative is T. They've agreed that the resolution is the stasis point because they base their advocacy statement off of the resolution, which is predictable to some degree. Cross proof that there's no bright line. Neil has no way of determining whether or not we're in the minority, which means any app can be construed as topical. Fourth, app condo, waiving beyond dependence in the favor of nebulous advocacy's dex ground. Even apps that seem close to the topic are no use to negate because when it seems to not forward a consistent vision of their topic, it works away into give a whack-a-mole, keeping that constantly guessing what it means to argue. It's unsustainable. A, logically, if doing things rely on the ballot as a survival strategy, one team stays to rupture. Second, just views, so the judge of the back flows badly, or just their personal opinions the right of the ballot cannot resolve it. They said expert is bad, cannot go for it. A, agreed baseline levels of predictability are good. They read a counter-trick, they've evident an act, kind of related to the resolution truths. And still the stasis point that they agree to. Second, communication is important. As per what DC Crossings, the reason they did not read their cards here is because communication is good at some level. Our definitions are good because third-party evaluation is the best way to evaluate anything because it's well grounded in the lit base, which is the only thing debaters can research before the year begins. That was above. Third, wrong. This card is not in the conference debate, does not assume a limited topic, nor the resolution does not assume the debate is a game, and that there are competitive incentives which should filter how you view any other offense. They said predictability should be evaluated in different ways. A, cannot access this. They are not indigenous. You don't get to say why they can access the resolution in different ways, or it just proves that they're only using native voices as a way to get the ballot, which should filter all their subjectivity off. And second, relies on subjectivity, I'll win subject information. It's not true debate. A, all causes our family, school, curriculum, finance, and religion impact our subjectivities. Far more. Second, switch side. We debate against arguments we've read, disproving any cognitive attachment to them. Third, lying. There's a competitive incentive to always say what it takes to win. Teams be verifiably incorrect arguments like were we good, knowing that they are scientifically disproven. Fourth, several rounds occur simultaneously. It's logically impossible for the ballot to encourage the adoption of predictable interps because each team offers a different version of the topic. Five, non-verifiable. There is zero way to measure whether someone thinks differently. If there is, there's no way to tell whether the ballot can change it. Six, laws change, not people. If we lose, we'll just upgrade our T-blocks, not research your app or modify your worldview. They say that the debate is sterile right now. A, not true. There's obviously in-depth case next versus policy apps. B, the ways was a question of predictability. Second, in the context of their topic, not ours. Cross-play work identical and counter-trip. Their term interpretation results in actions resulting and moral truisms that cannot be negated by the negative, which means only we access a large interlink to predictable ground. That B, okay, A, no co-optism. No one believes your policy actually resulted in it, but the app cannot resolve either because voting app does not result in their model debate. The ballot simply endorses who has resulted in the better model. Second, switch side solve it. The process of clash-based argument refinement is strikes the middle ground by producing the same research practice as the 1EC. They could have critiqued a 1EC that read a pledge read it backwards, and the advocacy statement have access to the exact same literature, but it's a substantially better debate because you have could have had predictability before the round to judge and away the app against a critique of everything instead leverage the case which generates in-depth comparison, but reading it as a 1EC makes it impossible to generate offense against it. They said we need conceding and cross-ends, that was above, which means they can't go for this. They said they said the word tribal was bad. It's not tied to natives. A, the term first origin in ancient Rome, where the Latin word tribus denoted a division of early people. It was not used to describe the cultures encountered through European exploration until the 19th century. Second, assuming the word tribe only has connotations with colonialism is more reductionist. There's a vast difference between tribal peoples and indigenous people. Tribal peoples have a special status acknowledged in law. Voting issue for perpetuating stereotypes of native people. Nowhere in the Romans card does it indicate tribes as talking to native folks. They have not done that ancient link work for you. Third, ballot does not solve. Unclear what voting for two
not many people do, or judging convention chats. A debate is only a question of what happens in this round. The voice of auto loses in the ballot can only remedy fairness by advancing us to the next round of the competition. Voting for them does not remedy the evidence ethics, and it's more racist to allow white judges to avoid themselves of accountability for getting a twice size reward of a ballot. If they truly believe the card was so egregious, Westwood would stop the debate right now and let judges decide. The fact that they won't prove this is the worst battery version of this argument because what they want is the ballot, not ethics. All this is further proven by cross-examination because they said we should be able to debate about whether or not the card is racist. If they think it's really racist, then just stop the debate right now. They said that was a question of the history of tea. History of tea is incorrect. Arguments do not have particular history. They can be used in violent ways, but cannot have also been used as a middle road defense, revolutionary interpretation of the topic, or Mill's argument about the value of various political practices. To say good king, on the other hand, can also be used as a heavy-handed defense of racism, not being real. It's a possible term argument to its ideologies, but tea's past is not its future as it moves closer and closer to reasonable defense of topic that incorporates many of the aspects concerns. It's no secret that the net only wins tea debates when they explain linkage to any offensive truths as moved to the middle of a road, not to the right. It's also not unique to them. We read topicality against policy teams and white poet teams as well, or there's a disconnect between the dissent and the impact of the history they're describing is over any of us even enter debates, so you should not unconditionally believe that there's something telling of debate's history. They said Rhetoric is violent. A, disagreement is good, they're better and worse until politics by native people, but advancement is impossible. Absent the ability to constructively criticize political methods. Second, links to all disagreements. There's no reason topicality is uniquely worse or better than the capcade. There's no argument as to why any of the counterplans or capcades are uniquely more violent or less violent than he. They have no reason why he is uniquely bad to it. Third, disagreement is good, which is all the classwork that I did above. Four, no link. Topicality is not imposition. The fact that it is introduced in debate, speech translated by the topic, picking and choosing, etc., proves that you could also have debate over whether or not they were topical. They chose not to read counter definition, which is a debate that we could have had. Winning competitions never zeros the impact turns insofar as the camp competition is true, then it links to them equally because they're just as invested in winning this debate as we are. They said we can't resolve fairness. That was above ballot proximity stuff. They can't solve it unless we want to seek the debate now. Please. Vote negative on presumption. A, offense, the threshold for beating their argument is the app needs a reason to vote app after the 1AC. 1AC process established there is no violence, and they resolve no violence that has occurred absent the 1AC. If they win, we've done something unethical, jettison everything we've said, and vote negative on presumption because the negative is reactionary. The alternative is worse, but the 1AC says nothing, and we're forced to disagree. If we've done something unethical as a result of their unpredictable advocacy. Second, ballot tie violence and debate to the ballot is bad. A single ballot cannot overcome broad malpractice and the debate space, and claiming that it does alleviates responsibility from the actors who should be held accountable. Our argument is not that these things should never be talked about, but rather tying them to the ballot is counterproductive. Obviously, it's a role for the negative. Just anything else, please. Go for context. Y'all processing or like not?
Take your time.
Oh, right.
tribalism is inherently associated with polarization and anarchy.
What are you talking about?
The Roberts evidence.
Yeah, like in what context?
Why is the concept of tribalism inherently associated with polarization? I'm asking you.
The argument the Roberts evidence is making is that people have shifted further to the left and the right. The only way to remedy this
so
gap
my
is to
question-
switch sides and defend the opposite
My
side.
question is, why does the intrinsic concept of tribalism, what about that relates into polarization?
The
what about
Roberts
being tribal
evidence is
makes one
simply
polarized?
referring to left and right groups as tribes. There's no connection to native
No,
people.
but
There's
I'm
no
asking
connection
you,
to
I'm asking you,
colonialism.
what about a tribe makes it polarized?
It's not that a tribe makes it polarized. He's used it as synonymous to group. He's just said the left group and the right group, moving further to left.
Time out. Well, okay. So when you're saying, Roberts is saying, tribal epistemology has found its way to the White House, vouchsafed by tribal leaders, and that tribal epistemology is a threat to durable. What is the tribalization of information? Like, what does these
He's
things
talking
mean?
in the context of groups, like
So-
in
so-
the
so-
context of the card, using tribe in the context of groups.
So-
There's no word in the Roberts evidence that ties tribes to colonialism.
I
No word that
understand
ties
that,
tribes
but
to native
that's
people.
just
That's it. Like that is it.
My question is, what about the intrinsic concept of tribalism makes it bad?
It is not the intrinsic context. This is like all I'm getting to.
Your
It is
evidence
not.
is saying the tribalization of information is a detriment to journalism.
Yes,
I
and
don't
in the
understand.
context
Please
of the
explain to me
Roberts
what
evidence, it's
tribalization
just
is
talking
and why
about
it's bad.
increasing partisanship, increasing polarization.
Okay,
talking about
that's
the
my
tribalism
question.
inherently
Why is
polarizing.
the concept of tribalism associated with polarization? What about it as an intrinsic
Because
concept
he
makes
uses
it
it in
associated
the
with polarization?
context of polarization. It is not about the meaning of the word on its own, but that the
So you
context
just said the
surrounding
word
the
100 times, but it has no meaning, or it's like
No,
I
because
don't
it's in the
understand what-
context of the article.
Okay, why does it being in a tribe mean you're polarized?
It did not say that. Not what
Your
Roberts
card
said.
says this. Your card says tribal epistemology is a bad frame. My question is, what about a tribe
Yes,
makes one
and then it
polarized?
explains what he means by that. He's using tribe as synonymous with group, has said the left
I
group and
understand.
right group
But
have
what
moved
about
further apart.
what about tribal epistemology is intrinsically bad?
No, this is as asinine as like saying group is intrinsically bad because you said left group and right group, therefore group is polarizing. Obviously not the same. He's just use it as a synonym. It's in the context
Okay,
of the card.
what about the behavior of leftist groups make them tribal?
It's not that they're tribal. It's the fact that they split
Your
apart.
evidence. Okay, what about that makes them tribal? Like this is.
I don't know what you mean by tribal.
You
You're
just
gonna
said in
say-
classics that they are tribal. My question is about what behaviors
Have
and
not
patterns make
said
them
that they are tribal. The Roberts evidence says because they've moved further to the left and further
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the right. This is an example
So
of
why,
tribal
why
epistemology.
does moving further to the left and further to the right make something tribal
Because
epistemology?
it is the word he has chosen to use. He chose to use this word.
No intentional
I am
meaning.
not
Randomly
Roberts.
chosen, just conjured from thin air. Is
He
that your
chose the
argument?
word.
It's
I
just a
don't know what
word,
to
you
say.
know, it's an accident. Like
You've
Robert's a scholar, just accidentally sure.
Oh my god.
Now the one I was saying.
Yeah.
Consensus is sad. Climate counter plan. Ban AI counter plan. Topicality. The DOS counter plan. The K.
You feel it.
Yeah. Disad, climate counter plan, ban AI counter plan, topicality, the DOS counter plan, the K.
And you said. So I'm at what first? Okay. Just 1 second.
Were you both good?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Is anyone not ready? Disad the first two counterpoints don't matter, they concede they don't nature doesn't matter. Topicality, fairness is definitely not bad. They agree with it, means has that way. They've showed up to the round, disclosed new about my speech times, the techniques of debate should come first. Be fairness is bad, but negative, the format of fairness, which means should come first. It's a double bottom T, structural fairness is not. Way procedure comes first, and also remedy structural fairness, but it's not. The reason procedural fairness should be thrown out the window. US. Department of State action tells better than the app. We keep the counterpoint trees in the US is better. Self take out that's Bergen versus speed, security, obviously, overlap. 2, expertise, US was literally better negotiation. QAC1 is pretty both. It fails. Cross my answers in the campaign below, but it's out on simple math early 11. DoD military foreign policy authority gives the United States marketing for responsibility for militarization, next time, some kind of undesirable effects of any observatory delay role with commentary foreign policy objectives. And like snap because it looks like DoD opposite 2 definitely solves the app. The one who sees the bar reading the resolution backwards, the one who sees definitely acts as this. The K. K outweighs 2 external impacts. They have no defense. 2 outweighs in terms of the app. 1 extinction, warming, causes oceanification, mass migration, sea level rise, heat stress, culmination, extra waste, while increasing violence in the short term. That outweighs controlling universal impact and life is spiritual value. 2 oppression of the atmosphere hit hardest by capital, reduces people, commodities, the machine. Production collapses and levels of try or die for the alternative. Agreed extinction always our case. Just try or die if we would link argument must outweigh irreversible is all the objective, which is stuff. I did above now. Frame the one arc through and clearness. Neil, despite being the oxygen Q, is unable to differentiate between a card and text. So 2R gets leeway if I miss something. 2AC, what is permutation? 1, they don't get it. There's no explicit definition of what constitutes their method. They plan this ass, move their practice to whatever they want, which turns any political advancement. At worst, the whole 1AC based on competition. 3 have impact your part. 2 severs or intrinsic. Every link is a dissent. The permutation severs is a voting issue for fairness in education. Only even 1% risk of link is sufficient to the perm asked with the impact calculus. Above 3 opportunity costs of finite political energy debate must be a question of whether we're to orientate. Otherwise, saying assumptions people are already doing diverse strategies in the steps code. The app does not have advocate departure for this one. Benefit don't risk links. Case that ways. They do not get access to new houses. It's about planning how we deconstruct capitalism, but it's in no way, shape, or size or form or defense of playing with language, which is the link I will do here. The 1AC reads semiotics and descriptive language. I quote mirrored resolution as quote playing with language, which dematerializes class struggle and encourages a shift to alternative cultural styles. In a sense, really greasing the wheels of communicative capitalism. This process of a pedagogy of affect forecloses structural foundational analytics as it becomes aimlessly distracted with deconstruction discourse and finding up feelings. For instance, liberals come on a comedy site. MLK's I Have a Dream and Amanda Gorman's poem at Biden's inauguration is foundational challenge to cerebral capital structures to demonstrating how they're over-focused on culture expression to weaponize the service of capital. Only the alternative strategy of dual power makes living brides the necessary mobilization. As for the Harvey evidence, their perception anti-instrumentality reifies capitalist power. Living 21. The anti-instrumentality underpins the disturbance of intuitive thinking that creates for anti-political arguments versus the level of the open question. Environmentalists having committed to replacing uncounted action, which open-ended stabilization refusal to give the definition of future rules, substance negation conclusion will be open-ended sharps or just reducing the wake of time. I'm particularly urgent left to reconsider attempt an anti-instrumentality at the moment of climate change, taking principles stand in favor of political withdrawal, to the argument that to stop global warming, which would be so continuing with the instrumental reason we have no choice but surrender to. Mark at 2. 2AC2 is environmental impacts. They cannot solve them. Only arguments description of why capitalism expansion. The root cause of industrialization they have no skin on. 2AC3 cellulism is the prerequisite. This is a new link to think of balance and TOC Octos can magically change material conditions. Cloud got 10. Globalization, like Godwin, led to appeals and champagne from which characters schemes have having news magical see examining close to court. It is in the facing most alignment goes with globalization via globalization, which exists in the core reason communication styles and entertain magical volunteerism. Agency is the ability to control phenomena through manipulation of thoughts and language, and magical volunteers works deliberate constriction material reluctance and inability to recognize the structural economic limits of individuals' ability to action or engine around which organization fails to shift endures. Relation magical volunteers typically guided by the secret which teaches the reader your life reflection of your thoughts. We are alarmed by the suggestion that even in situations such as imprisonment deciding in terms about how to perceive their agency, which opens up opportunities for innovating their ideal. One can choose an orientation despite material limitation, part of both to be information from through imagination will come into real simultaneous classes, media condition of repression until 16. Should be nobody's be been by the state, pressure with free market logic, led to policy of private to public good, the schools police public policy really look into private sector this level of right between the inclusion government and corporate greed. Nobody's can be understood without class rates, material condition, relations, sex, and other forms of pressure to reduce understanding of this. Does not mean all forms of justice to the class, rather we cannot address oppression without recognition. This is that finds out class at all costs and virtually multiple work and save for any features. This is economic condition 2AC4 is the ethics chart. Oh yeah, Bojo in 1976 was definitely right about how to take down capitalism, highlighting its atrocious lack towards, and they can overcome all the work they did above. My best argument about energy, but the alternative here it solves pragmatic demands of the state toward anti-capitalism, bringing together radical anti-capitalist chapters of the DSA, Marxist narrative, the state structure to reconsider political economy, solves warming political engagement, align the communists to horizon and respond productively to challenges. It solves the case and accountability of the parties primarily informed by anti-colonial struggles that prioritize the material needs of disadvantaged communities. Alternative overcomes capitalism by building communities that disrupt capitalist infrastructure. The alternative cannot do their momentum now, but the off trades off. Bella 22. Discontent with neoliberalism was high before corona. People's experience was austerity, started legitimacy, globalization, psychological, critical mass, and the world when to be captured, continue forcing the question of who will succeed, hard to see establishment will try to be backfield more progressive, come up with exciting paradigms, promises cannot be translated critical mass. The left compromise will be this neoliberalism, French progressive protection with this legacy must be decidedly pushed aside. The stream right can currently position take advantage of these discontent opportunities, cherry picking, and both standards, right wing, solid radical parties proclaim this is for the benefit of people with right culture and often for travel time shown by electoral success leaders like Marte and Modi, harness for authority parties, discontent challenges led to go beyond. Imagine to materialize alternative the concrete movements, there's urgency like the right language, the competition, once the power, the control, engagement, reduction. Just to relate to these prioritizations up, it's right. We all occur about our impact towards the context of debate, but debate is the type of alternative education. Help 21. Alternative education question government regulation research through figurative practice of forms of content enable subversion new forms of organization which talk about its growth and educational institution where we injured by capitalism crisis signaled by the culture used for knowledge education relationship between facility creating capital rather than solution of global society and economic and environmental crisis. Mark F. crisis did not take out framework opposite prerequisite, which is what opposite.
250.
250?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, everyone left.
So what about those?
Are they outside?
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. Case, DOS counterplan, T, okay.
Or actually, case TDOS.
Okay, case T, DOS count.
You going to this like T overview sheet at all, or like what
no,
else?
were you on like this?
That would be, I think, the bottom.
Okay.
All you gotta do is look at it.
You gotta check, man. Sorry about the paper cut.
Over time, but okay.
Sorry, dude. One more time, order.
Case T, DOS, cap K.
Cool.
Everyone good? Awesome. Vote out for symbiotic transmission that disorders the academy can't win without answering the external impact of obliteration and indigenous singularity. Every off-case is complicit in settler symbiotics that reduce the mere people to their slavish reflection of the unruly savagery of indigenous thought and defining the contours of acceptable antagonism as discursive genocide, which is an intrinsic harm. That's the Atanala and Morrison evidence that straight turns the Captain now the form of residual link substitutes the history of indigenous Marxism built on spirituality that caricatures immaterial and local primitives incapable of collectivizing the alt-purity policies where universal struggles like I and M Dapple and the healing mark, which are all examples of the conceit are palatable, but ghost dance revivals or tricks or traditions are unproductive for the united front against the capitalists instituted genocidal impacts like cultural revolution in China and exterminated 54 indigenous groups because they departed from the ideal image of the proletariat, turns the alt-solvency because killing natives who are the biggest source of discontent against settler capital atomizes leftist union on presumption they don't get a 1T feels inerrancy losses performance topping has contributed to an anti-native debate practice rejecting them throws the system into disarray of business as usual politics is an advantage of voting nugget affirmative they say tying violence when debate is bad wrong it encourages forced confrontation to the community's fidelity to groups of people and community grievances which is not good for fostering accountable community practices. Team. Importing the language of tribalism as a metaphor for the current political climate is racist and should be rejected. It is based on racist stereotypes that native tribal livelihood is somehow polarizing, anarchic, and dogmatic. The one to see Roberts evidence explicitly divides defense's claim. They said they should be able to kick the card, so we certainly get the impact turn. And now it's too late. I mean, seriously, the 1AC read an argument about the misapprehension of native science and signifiers, and they responded by reading cards that say that white people who refuse to switch sides are acting tribally. Now the external impact is accessibility of spirit murder. Native people who were forced to experience hostile microaggressions that assume that tribes and cultural history is the microaggression. Now, one, the Roman argument. What does this have to do with anything? These are completely wrong. Just because it originated as a Roman term doesn't mean that it isn't racist. This is just like saying the N-word isn't racist because in ancient times it was referred to a different class of people. Now, two, we never associated all indigenous people with tribes. We have just as the indigenous and black tribes do exist, and that framing the concept of tribalism as inherently polarized is bad. Now, they are just wrong on this evidence. We have red cards about black and indigenous people that says that when we compare them as tribes, their tribal values to somehow to be anarchic, that causes them to experience psychic violence. Now, it is your role as the adjudicator within the TOC Elam Rouse to artificially elevate the role of what your ballot serves, where you should reject the racism in every instance that jurisdictionally correct against loss of right anti-native performance. Using the ballot as a deterrence mechanism is important because that's the only thing your ballot can solve for. Now, if they are correct about competitive incentive, that means that they create a competitive incentive for racism, which means that any chance you get to call out their practices is a net benefit to voting affirmative. Now, I say that Roberts is not us. This is completely illogical. LASA has read a card from Greenville to the TOC and clearly believes the card to have pedagogical merit is intentionally chosen because they think it's strategic and independently. When they say stop the debate is wrong. One, judges won't do that because anti-native scholarship has become entrenched in the community. Two, neg should have a chance to litigate that they didn't say racist things. Three, even if they haven't done or said a racial slur, the thing insidiously spills up to violence that isn't clearly observable in the movement and proven by the what he thesis. Now the ballot can't solve our affirmative and still rewards lawsuit for violent tribal misapprehension, which still incentivizes the racist practice practices. They say no such activity. This is wrong, hostile, and patronizing, and presumes that any genuine impact to ensure safety is done solely to win debate. Now, their argument is the exact logic that stereotypes Asian people as cheating, deceitful criminals trying to take advantage of the system. That they say we broke a new after we have no obligation to stay transparent to settlers who misapprehend native subjectivity. Regardless, they conclude our theory of native utterances that even if no subject formation psychic violence does exist when we perform competitive and cultural comparisons. Now they say the ballot is a survivability politics is bad, and this is irrelevant to what I see, and two I see can be negative in the what I see to the political methodology. Now they say we are indigenous, conceded that it's about models of how there often spills up to native practices. Now we did the tribalism stuff above the dealist counterplan. Permutation due both expertise not external and impacted by topicality. They externalize politics out there and never challenge the native semiotics in here, and they can see that they make the counterplan less likely because simulations create an addiction to the imagination that makes policy less likely. Now expertism is good, not a reason to vote affirmative. Calculate. Top level permutation to both counter simulation that throw the system of capital into disarray are prerequisite to the enactment of the alternative LASA. A zero answer to what motivates people to organize anti-capitalist insurgents in the first place. 1, yes, burns in a method that anything else justifies plan plus fracture solidarity by tearing people away at the margin. 2, doesn't ever links are functionally plan plus and net benefits outweigh. So there's not the now the root cause and extinction debate is irrelevant. 1, the relevant question is solvency. We agree that mechanisms of racial capital occurs at minute and global levels, not which impacts outweigh the other because the alternative can't fiat revolutions anyways. And we're the links, even if we're residually capitalist natives, should trick capitalism to serve communist ends. The new evidence developments are focused on the community instead of Western individuals themselves. It can't improve it by the Navajo's economic support organization responsible on the fossil fuel development. The limit says that they must read an internal link between red capitalism and their impact. Now, on the extent the Protestant ethnic turn, one link is insufficient. If we now we straight turn the semiotics link in, the Belarus link in semiotic precedes capitalism. Root cause shouldn't be evaluated chronologically through chicken or egg. They've conceded our descriptive theory that capitalism has shifted away from plants and materials commodifications and values, which straight turns link.
We have 346.
TK counterplan case.
Sorry.
TK counterplan case.
Sorry, that was my fault.
TK
counterplan case.
counterplan case. Am I good?
Sorry. I mean, there's no doc, yeah.
No, don't. Neil, you good?
Vote negative. There's no reason to vote out. Post 20C means worst case scenario, kick everything from what we said and vote negative. There's no offensive reason why we have to go for the Roberts evidence. Worst case, just don't give us the card to vote negative anyway because there's no reason. The app in and of itself is inherently good. The call out is a non-starter. A ballot cannot solve, but for two non-native people does not solve. For any aggression that happened in this round, they have no reason why they use the word tribal affecting them uniquely. There's no reason why the ballot can resolve violence even if it did happen. And the judge and commission checked that they really believe the card was so egregious and egregious they would have stopped the debate at Texas. They would have stopped the debate at Heart of Texas. The fact that they didn't proves that they're only doing it for competitive incentives because they think they can get a chance to resolve the ballot better. The fact that they won't prove that they're the worst bad faith version of this argument because what they want is the ballot, not ethical people. Neil's assertion at the end of Tweezy crosses that we can debate about whether or not it's racist proves that their version of debate is far worse and simply illogical. When debate is only a question of this round vote negative, the ballot can only remedy fairness violation, which is above. B, believing the ballot can solve ethics action is bad. This is independent offense when dropped results in quote legislation where non-native judges can devoid themselves of accountability by granting the reward of the ballot. If something truly racist happened in the round, it's the judge's responsibility to report it to tavern or seek higher education like teachers, scholars, coaches, etc. To ensure actual racism does not happen again. The fact Westwood thinks it can be solved by a ballot when we start to recreate their impacts because teams use it as competitive incentives or teams use it as offensive arguments when it should have been an issue that transcends the level of debate. Third, there is no link. June and Neil assert that the use of the word tribal is bad. They have done no work to establish how Roberts is using it in the context where it's inherently colonialist or racist. The card assumes that the word tribal is in the context of native people, does not assume Roberts is using it as synonymous with group. Nowhere in the card does Roberts connect the usage of tribal to native folk, which means the risk of this would be zero. It's their burden for improving the interrelation of the winner has done zero work on this. Where should not get new answers as to why the use of the word tribal is inherently bad. This is not the same thing as N-word. Analogy of the word tribal to the N-word is definitely net worse because it downplays the actual violence that happens when teams use the N-word. It's also not applicable to them because they're not native, which is they should be effective to it. Fourth, assuming the word tribal only has connotations of colonialism is extremely reductionist. Also, independent offense is an impact turn. June's one error was non-responsive. He just asserted that we did use it in the context of colonialism, which is incorrect. There's a vast difference between tribal people and indigenous people. Tribal people have specialist access and knowledge in law voting. Issue of perpetuating stereotypes of native people when functionally unanswered. Now, vote negative for a model debate that ensures they read a policy action in the context of the United States federal government. The one error did not extend a model and then said ballot results and model, which is simply illogical because they've got our ballot proximity argument in the context of this round has not extended an independent reason that they can solve it. There's also no model X in the one error, so vote negative. We have offensive reasons why our model is good. A case of question models and voting out obviously cannot resolve us reading bad evidence in this round, nor can it deter future teams reading bad evidence because Roberts is not intrinsic to reading a topical affirmative. I think still read what they think is racist scholarship and the model of the app because I've noticed where the model the model means they can't do that. I'm going to do the fairness word here. Fairness has to outweigh all of their answers as proves competition is the foundation of debate and necessitates rules and disregard and any of them collapse the activities. Infinitely regressive debate is not like any other academic value, but about a competition. Ask yourself why we check judges, why break new ass, why is winning the TOC not the same thing as losing in doubles, why do you extend bad arguments when the other team concedes them. Ultimately, Westwood is here to win just as much as we are. If they're not, then vote negative. Fairness is a precondition to access any of the pedagogical benefits of debate because absent of the negative, there's no incentive to innovate or do case-specific research of the course of the season, which means fairness is an intrinsic good regardless of the style of argument, and then teach should bracket out substance and offense because your questions predetermine the content of debates. You will not allow to give me into 25-minute to 1 hour on capitalism. Even if provided more education, they eliminate debates incentive structure or staff motivation to come to terms, which means we access a much larger impact of incentive and motivation to come to debate, but they lack that interlink. They said the impact was spirit murder. All of this relies on subjectivity. They've conceded multiple subtopics doing this unwinnable for them. A, if they truly believe this was a problem, they would not have introduced ethics into debate or competitive spacing because the purpose of debate is to have contestation. If they truly believed it was racist, they would have stopped debate because there's no reason we should be able to debate over whether or not something was truly racist. B, conceded blocks change, not people. When people lose a debate, they assume it's because they're not technically advanced enough, not because they've known some ethical truism. This should zero the risk of the ethics violation because people don't actually change whether or not they believe the card is true. They'll just write more defenses of the Roberts card, which internally turns all of their offense. They have no reason why they should just how we think debate people. Third, all causes, family, school, curriculum, experience, and religion impact are subjectivities far more. They have no reason why it's uniquely bad. They said that they read a new app because they could have. No, this is not true. They're not native people, which means they do not have a unique, they do not occupy unique space in debate. As for the one you see, this is not an excuse for them treated not to lack. The fact that they have not disclosed, that means that they have resulted in net less education. The fact that they did not bring up the Roberts evidence just beforehand to got us disqualified also disproves all of this. They said that ballot determines competition. Consequently, the competition is somewhere above. The fact that it is competitive disproves the fact that the ballot can resolve it because if they introduce it into a space where everybody can disagree over everything. Case. Counterplan conceded parentis competition case. The judge's role is non-educator but adjudicator. Cross-life banners
not a reason to not solve the debate because the same logic applies to the balance. Philip to violence is a logical realized subject information which is answered above. It's a question of the technique made, not the content. T is a question whether or not the 1AC should have been read off if some reading of T or 1AC cards is relevant because topicality comes first, because they should not have gotten the 1AC and they wouldn't have read the 1AC, which would have solved their offense. That takes out case offense, and the topicality calls case argument on responsive. A judgmental check as above. B, it's not. They have zero justifications for why T is anti-native in the one there, other than just asserting it is. The fact that neither of them are native should mean it's not the place to indicate whether or not they perform microaggression. Ballot can't solve, not models. We can send them over.
How much now here?
250.
We only have 246. We only have 246.
Okay.
Oh, so sorry. So sorry.
T will just be like Roberts. Vote affirmative are a method of tricks and hermeneutics that counter-simulates the murderous representations of the domain community security and survivors within it. Instead of taking resolutional words at face value, we transform language into a game of plots that deconstructs resolutional bias in the first place. The role of the judge might to be an adjudicator, but adjudicator should not invest in racist hostile practices. Older arguments on top of being good broadly are irrelevant. You can view our argument as a pick out of their reading of Wednesday Roberts. You can agree that topicality could be potentially good in other instances, but the Wednesday's deployment of the language of tribalism is bad in the first place. Older arguments about judges asserting norms and checks will be impacted above now. The tuner is in a structurally unworkable position. We have basically all the pieces in the puzzle that are required to win this debate. One, we read an argument in the 1AC about the misapprehension of native science and subjectivity. The 1AC then responded to that with the misapprehension of native science and subjectivity of a valid keyword. This debate is simply a yes-no question of one, was the 1AC's usage of Roberts a misapprehension of native subjectivity? If you conclude yes, you vote affirmative. Using the language of tribalism, this kind of polarization is fucking racist. It's based on racist stereotypes and it's something that you should reject. Your Roberts evidence exclusive says, quote, under radicalizing media and tribal epistemology traditionalism has hardened into tribalism, unquote. Using tribalism, this kind of American polarization, conflict, chaos, and division is based on a racist stereotype that assumes native livelihood is somehow foreign and primitive. You should not let LASA spew white propaganda that misapprehends native identity. Our evidence exclusive says that the usage of the word tribal to describe American politics is not neutral but an active choice that reinforces Western stereotypes. LASA's reproduction of this racist stereotype is no different than the trope of the savage war that makes native people as fierce and violent savages perpetually at war. Truth evidence says this in the context of how they used it. Tribalism and tribal in the context of this debate. It says that political pundits like Roberts weaponizes the trope of tribalism as the explanation behind polarization is independently bad. Ask yourself, why does author choose to use the word tribal in the first place to describe the current political climate? Was it an accident, or was there do they believe there's some latent association between tribalism and anarchy? Cross-examination was a joke. I mean, come on, people, the word tribalism is mentioned 52 times in this 1C card. Now, even if the intent of the argument is anti-racist, that's irrelevant in this context because LASA has deployed the concept of tribalism in a way that conjures racist stereotypes in white people's minds because of the drop interlinked from the one year. Now there are multiple impacts that they have conceded when they have dropped spiritual violence with the misapprehension of native culture, the tool of colonial politics that serves to extinguish native spirituality, that encourages native people to internalize shame for their cultural heritage, reflected society violence within classroom to the actively make debate inaccessible for native people. Participation of native folks in debate is historically low, and racist takes what they want to see only make the community more hostile. This makes the DM prerequisite to access the benefits of older fairness or class arguments. The question you should ask yourself is, how can native students learn when their space is defined by terror now? Without now, the balance is key in the first place. One, they have conceded multiple framing arguments exiting the two. Now we are the only team theorizing a role for the specifics of this debate. This is a debate the highest level of TOC elims involving top-ranked teams in the nation and the winners of the Baker. This debate does not just matter for how the community approaches racial grievances. They conceded from the TOC and warning that the fact that the TOC elims involving LASA makes it a unique opportunity to highlight racist grievances. Teams across the nation regularly borrow framework arguments from LASA. They are models for topicality for youth across the community, which is the only magnified by the fact that LASA open sources their evidence punishing for LASA for reading racist misapprehension is good. The ballot serves as the referendum on the 1C has brought a piece of evidence that is explicitly racist and should be rejected. You must put the ballot on the line. It's the only way to ensure a commitment to anti-racism voting aspect goes to the community that racist stereotypes on native people should be rejected on face. Theirs should be an implicit multiple standard for evidence. Any other monolith racist evidence off the hook, making it not only a no-risk option that teams can test out racist stuff, see if it sticks, or a bad half ballot is the only way to deter this practice. In the first state, to concede from the one they should theoretically assume that your ballot has more agency than a judge. They say reported that a tab judge, judges are educated and should make referendums on what practices are racist. The Greek arguments, does LASA understand that every word in the English language originated from Greek heroes or point there are native and black individuals that associate themselves with the word tribal? When you tell them that their structure of governmental organizations polarized, can't reach across the aisle, is hostile, dogmatic, etc., that is racist. Now, all these arguments about Heart of Texas and Texas, these are new in the Twitter. Fuck you, LASA is regularly confronted with grievances from us, black and native teams, about the black progressive nature of topicality. Our black coaches requested prior to that they not read their 1C framework show because it was black progressive, which means that when we tell them they did a practice that was racist, they don't listen. They only request feedback for the racist practice when it benefits them. Their arguments about white guilt are completely wrong. Judges, it is not washing your hands of racism, but investing in a model of anti-racism. It is more racist to say that you should invest in the 1C's misapprehension of native identity in the first place. Their arguments about we homogenize native people. These are completely wrong. We don't say that all native people are associated with our tribe, but that there are some native people within debate that are associated with tribes, and those people might feel negatively as a result of the 1C. We are not bad faith action. It's not going to determine that because we regularly confront questions of native subjectivity within debate. The black logic arguments or doubling down arguments are completely nonsensical. voting negative that just literally says we should not pass the 13th Amendment because people like LASA or white Southerners will become more racist. You should not vote for them because they might potentially double down. Like, the link is massive. Subjectivity, just because we're not native, does not mean you should not invest in racist practices.
That's assuming something pretty simple.
There's no other way to compete.
Sean is too far from it. She's also What? I think My instinct is the alphabet because it is a critical threat. It's completely unlimited data. No, they can collect biometrics. Someone else will collect biometrics and they'll just tweak it. And also just those models, they also do so many other crimes against their own law. I mean, it's like human rights violations. Dude, it's not that deep there. One is deep. What? Okay, wait, you know we got it in the wall 2 times in a row. Wait, I'm not joking, Jay, so bad. The only reason we didn't break this stupid thing is like we only lost 1 round. 1 round was like straight like I do not know, the judges like fell asleep after instructed or something. I don't know what it was. I really was close. I still think we won, but it's like it's either a lot of terminal defense or like in a late context I can see why they would have won. So. I'll take it. Thank you.
No, we always went for like this line that's like everything else is like especially like break off.
Yes. Nice. Thank you. Check my well, it's not much. Why do you computer for it? Should I tell you this? For CX, this is literally what happened. Yeah. Oh my god. It's my computer. Why? Yeah, Joe's go. What are you looking for? So look at something. Like that's like with all
That's sort of like yeah.
I hate when she gets it's sad though. We learned something.
What?
He's the biggest fight. Wheeler's at hey, no, I don't. Thank you. Yes, yes we do.
sure he's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, but he's not in. I wasn't the last in.
He's not in yet.
Walked out. He's not in. No, I wasn't the last one. Wait, now the decision's in, but now we don't have Adam. Classic. Thanks. If you have more luck than us.
Chloe was trained for this.
We have everyone.
You have everyone.
I know.
I can announce. You want to do it? Yeah.
Congrats to both teams for making it to the octafinals of the 2023 Tournament of Champions hosted by University of Kentucky. The decision is a 3-0 for the negative from the bar. I'll give you the offer I give everyone at the end of their career. Do you want them?
Okay.
Alright, first, when I saw the bracket last night, I knew I was going to be here. I think y'all probably know I was going to be here. I want to thank y'all for trusting me all year to judge y'all's debates. I keep thinking what this debate means. Two Texas public high school teams debating each other. I've been telling both y'all's coaching staffs all year. I'm rooting for y'all because the Texas public high school winning a chip would be incredible. It's the dream. We're debating the best debate state in the country. Screw everyone else. It's a really hard state to debate in. We have things like UIL, TFA, a lot of different things. Also, teams from the 512 repping Austin, Texas. Can't thank y'all enough for putting me here. I can't stress the pleasure I've had, the honor I've had of judging y'all all year. I felt really bad knowing that I was going to have to end one of y'all's careers today. I could speak about each of y'all for many minutes, and I know no matter where y'all go from here, the Texas debate community is incredibly happy that y'all are part of it. We'll speak fondly of y'all for many years to come. I take up the affirmative on the question of whether or not racism was done in this debate. I end up concluding no. First, the link debate. It is hardly super clear for me until the 2AR, and even then, it seems tenuous at best. Maybe there's a communication breakdown, no pun intended, given the AF, in the 2AC and 1AR. The only understanding I have post 1AR is that there are black indigenous groups who self-identify as tribes, and that saying tribalism is polarizing means racism. I'm missing the internal link here between polarization and doing a racism. I feel confident that there's not a spill to violence internally extended by the affirmative, so I have to resolve in the context of this debate an ism was done, and I cannot articulate that explanation to the neg, the AF, or the room writ large at the end of this debate. I think there may be a marginal risk that everyone notes those black and indigenous groups, and I can't explain why that constitutes racism or some sort of impact to those groups. I also think that the negative has some defense to this. The defense. The first point, the lone example of 1AR and 2AR go for is black indigenous groups. I do not have an answer flow to the negative argument that this itself is reductionist to amalgamate tribes and indigenous folk in the first place. Yes, there is some risk that because you are indigenous and identify as tribes, but it doesn't speak to tribes and indigenous folk writ large and how that reductionism assumes that all these groups operate in the same place. It's probably not offense to the negative, but it does seem to be defense to the one group that is cited in the 1AR and 2AR. I think that far more should be done here by the negative explaining the delineation, why it is a reductionism, but it's unanswered, and I have a similar explanation for it as why polarization leads to racism. The second piece of defense, stopping the debate. The 2AR has implored the panel to put the ballot on the line, which makes me highly sympathetic to the argument that you should have stopped the debate after the 2AC. Westwood has said that it is bad and it creates a sort of form of violence if we stop the debate, while LASA says that the judges adjudicating on whether or not racism was done creates a form of white saviorism where judges get to pat themselves on the back, which can never resolve these things. Neither of these are very clear to me, seem sort of a wash. If the ballot on the line matters, I think that ending the debate post-2AC probably resolves all of that offense. Also probably proves the risk of their competition shapes the debate argument. See some point for me, fairness is internally to all ethics. It's explained by the negative as the sole way that we can reach ethical decisions. The only team that has extended a model of debate at the end of the debate is the negative. They made it clear that that model can access a sort of fair version of debate, so it probably solves that it has an internal link turn to the AF's offense. That's sort of the TLDR. I'm more than willing to do questions, comments, anything like that afterwards.
I can go next. Fantastic season. Really enjoy you all. I love the Westwood staff, love the Westwood energy. Y'all are fantastic. Everything great about the school debate, everything great about the debate. So really excited to get to this. Mine's very similar to Adam's. I think top level for me is that the loss of procedural fairness turns and outweighs a heavily mitigated evidence call out, very unclear internal. I agree with everything said on this first thing about the Roberts evidence. I agree that that's the only link argument present. I thought a little bit more about some other stuff as well, because I do think that you have an argument at the top about I should overcorrect in favor of language that is used in certain ways by indigenous groups. And so, maybe me making literal readings of evidence is part of the problem. Okay, fine. However, one part of the issue here is that LASA has also made a net offensive argument that implicates some of your ballot framing about this, that the incorrect analogization of violence towards language trades off with the same sorts of things you're talking about in debate broadly about how violence is done to black and indigenous debaters, especially when said by two non-native debaters. So, I think, other than that, agree with what Lipton said with respect to some of the link mitigation stuff. The other question is more of this ballot framing stuff. So, if there's some risk that the racism happened, do you solve it, right? I think that their impact is certainly mitigated, or certainly solved by them, given mitigation of your internal link. Because I know the voting neg on topicality remedies the loss of procedural fairness and also preserves competitive incentives, and I think that they have one that controls the internal links to how minds change. I think Lipton talked a lot about a lot of mechanical stuff that I think LASA did well on. The other important thing, though, is I think that the 2AR is sort of lacking on some of these ballot mechanics stuff, because I think a lot of the arguments you're making kind of boil down to, one, we should win if we win a link, right, fine, but two, this debate matters because of its stage. The second is a uniqueness argument that goes just as true for everything they have said for how competitive incentives actually dictate how people's minds change. There's not really you state the line that this ballot matters, or this ballot matters in this debate because of its stage, whatever, why. Explain that, especially when there's a very robust counter explanation, the 2NC and 2NR, and especially when you don't get to any of the fairness debates with 2NR. So.
Yeah, congrats to both teams. Once again, I don't think I'm old enough to say anything about any of you, but yeah, I agree with both the decisions. I think there's a really large risk of fairness, and I think that it outweighs what I think is almost zero risk of offense. It's the biggest thing that mattered to me was just, could I explain to LASA exactly what about reading the card was racist and draw the lines, and that was the hardest part, because after reading through evidence, I agree with all the link treatment stuff that both Adam and Devil talked about. And so I know for certain that there's a large fairness impact that there's no defense to, and my ballot can solve. And there is a very, very low racist type argument that I don't know if my ballot can solve. Given I don't think the 2AR answers some of the 2NR arguments just about the generic stuff, even for subjectivity, for finding a blotch, how my ballot counts for spirit murder, and other things that are not super, super important, but at best provide defense when their impact is at 100. I also think the stuff that happened earlier in the debate that's just end around here, if it's only about education and what I should do, isn't really grappled with in the 2AR, which serves their arguments about why competition first framing is true and why the reason that you are going for this argument to a certain extent is because you have the desire to win. So procedural fairness stuff outweighs. Yeah, I largely agree with that.
I have one last statement to add. It's not as many people in this room as I would like for this statement. Everyone, wow, put some respect on June's name. That's a goddamn Putniff kid, an Octos of the TOC.
You go first. Questions? Good. Do you all have anything?
Probably going to go to your next round. Any thoughts on how to move through?
Dude, I think you had a flash straight turn to the thing into 2NC that should be top of the 2NR. Come on.
Your response to the clash.
Yeah.
Adding skills.
Yeah. You have a large mechanical argument about how the things you get from the debate are actually combat racism or these syllables flash.